Okay, dear friends, good evening. We are right now going to be doing the 16th installment of the Daily Mitzvah, and today we conclude all the mitzvahs, lots of mitzvahs, all about idolatry and pagan practices, and what can I say? It's been a lot of mitzvahs. We've got our last big load of mitzvahs coming up today, so let us begin. Mitzvah number one for today is that it is forbidden to be a practitioner of magic spells and incantations and abracadabra type of stuff, which means, says the Rambam, in those times there were people that convinced themselves, which means the Rambam does not believe that any of this stuff is true. This was all self-delusion or deluding other people into believing that if you say certain senseless sounds, you actually could have an effect on things. For example, if you see a scorpion or a snake, you could say a bunch of abracadabra stuff. You could say a magic spell, and you can make that snake or scorpion not bite you. Or you could say things that will create damage, or you could say things that will do good, etc., etc. You're not allowed to do any of these stuff. No magic spells for a Jew to do. Okay, next mitzvah. It is forbidden to seek out communication with the dead, which means in the olden days, and again, the Rambam does not believe this was real at all. There is no way to communicate with the dead. According to the Rambam, this was all just a bunch of hocus pocus, bunch of fake stuff. Either people fooling themselves, faking it themselves, or people just misleading the masses. But the idea was that people would try to seek out the communication with the dead. How would they do that? Well, there were different types of rituals of what they would do. The Rambam brings down one example of such a ritual from the Gemara that people would starve themselves and then go to sleep at night with a very empty belly inside a cemetery with the hope that the spirit of the dead will come to them and will communicate with them and answer their questions. And says the Rambam, that is strictly forbidden for a Jew. Next mitzvah, it is forbidden to go seek advice and counsel from the Ov practitioner and to ask him for the knowledge that he has received through practicing the Ov practice, the Ov ritual. We learned about the Ov ritual a few days ago. It is basically some type of weird ritual that the practitioner would then say that he is starting to hear sounds emerge from under his armpit, and it's telling him about the future or telling him whatever information he wants to hear. Again, the Rambam does not believe that any of this stuff was real at all, but it is forbidden for a Jew to go and seek out information and advice from an Ov practitioner. And from there, we go to the next mitzvah, that it is forbidden as well to go and seek out the advice and the knowledge from the Yidoni practitioner. Yidoni was a similar type of thing. It was a ritual done by taking a bone of the Yidoah bird and putting it in the practitioner's mouth, and he would do a whole bunch of stuff and offer incense, and once again, a bunch of hocus pocus, and that the practitioner would start hearing sounds emerge from the bone of this bird, and it would tell him about the future and answer his questions. And again, the Rambam says, strictly forbidden for a Jew to seek out advice from a Yidoni practitioner. Next mitzvah, it is forbidden for a Jew to do any acts of witchcraft. That's it. We don't have any details of what witchcraft is. Maybe the Rambam says it in other areas, but over here the Rambam doesn't give any more explanation. Next mitzvah. Now we're going to get into some haircut styles. It is forbidden for a Jew to cut off or shave off the sideburns, the hair that extends in front of the ear on both sides of the head. Why not? Because this is what the idolaters would do. Those who were pagan people, pagan believers, the way they would have haircuts was they would totally cut off that part of the hair, the sideburns, and only leave like a straight round cut of the hair, but that would totally cut away all the sideburns. That is totally forbidden, and it's forbidden no matter what type of haircut you're getting, which means that Rambam says, even if you're giving yourself a totally bald haircut, and you're not giving yourself any specific idolatrous style haircut, which deliberately cuts out just that part of hair, the sideburns. But even if you're giving yourself a totally bald haircut, it is forbidden to cut off the sideburns, which the Torah calls them the payah, the payas, which is what we call them until today, the payas. Says the Rambam, this is a mitzvah that is only given to men women are not obligated in this mitzvah, so there would be no problem for them to cut off their sideburns if they would like to do so. Next mitzvah, it's forbidden for a Jew to cut off his beard. And the Rambam specifies that there are 5 areas of the beard, 5 domains of the beard. There's the hair of the beard in the upper cheek, the lower cheek, and that's on 2 sides, so we already have 4. And then there's the hair of the chin. And those 5 areas constitute the beard, and it is forbidden to cut off any one of those 5 areas. Now, why not? The reason why is because pagan practice, an idolatrous practice, and especially amongst the priests and the ascetics, the very religious and hardcore pagan believers, they would shave off their beard, and this became a trademark of pagan belief, that you shave off your beard. And the Rambam says, this is actually well known, that in Europe, if you go to Europe, the priests of the Christian priests, they all cut off their hair. And so the Rambam says, look, you can see till today that this is a very specific niche trademark of idolatry and their leaders and their clergy, and therefore a Jew is not allowed to do it. And it's just interesting that the word in Europe that the Jews, just the common vernacular that the Jews came up with to refer to a priest is the word galach, a galach. But it's interesting, in Hebrew, the word galach simply means somebody who shaves. Like the word for shaving is ligaleach, or megalchin, you cut off the beard. So that became like literally the very way to define and describe a priest, saying a galach, somebody who walks around without a beard. So this became something which they did specifically, uniquely, and therefore a Jew is not allowed to do it. And the Rambam adds here as well, this is a mitzvah that is only given to men. Women are not obligated in this mitzvah, so there's no problem for a woman to remove any facial hair. Next mitzvah, it is forbidden for a man to cross-dress as a woman, which is to put on either any clothing or any ornaments or anything that is known to be woman's clothing. And the way it works is that you got to go by the locality. Every single place has different traditions and different customs of how to dress. But where you live, if there's a certain type of clothing which is known to be woman's clothing, female clothing, a man is not allowed to wear those clothing. Why not? The Rambam gives 2 reasons. Number 1 is because cross-dressing was used as a way to promote and arouse promiscuity and lewdness and sexual arousal and immodesty. And therefore, the Rambam says that is, of course, very unhealthy for a Jew, so don't do that. And the second reason is because cross-dressing was used actually quite often as part of rituals in pagan cultures, in pagan beliefs, which means for certain rituals and in order to worship certain gods, a man had to be dressed like a woman or a woman had to be dressed like a man, etc. So therefore, for these 2 reasons, number 1, it is very immodest and it goes against the modesty that we want to try to maintain as Jews. And number 2, that this is a pagan practice. We don't do any cross-dressing. The next mitzvah is the exact same concept, just in reverse. The first mitzvah was a man is not allowed to cross-dress like a woman. This mitzvah is that a woman is not allowed to cross-dress like a man, which is that if in your locality it is accepted and known that a certain type of clothing or a certain type of ornament is worn by men exclusively, this is a man style of clothing, a woman is not allowed to wear that. And if she does, she's violating this mitzvah. Okay, next mitzvah. It is forbidden to tattoo your body with certain dyes, like a blue dye or a red dye, says the Rambam, or any other type of color, because this was a very well-known idolatrous practice. And the Rambam says this is still very popular in Egypt, in the pagans of Egypt till today. So therefore, Jews are not allowed to give themselves a tattoo. Next mitzvah, it is forbidden to hurt yourself, to damage yourself, to cut yourself, to make yourself bleed, or to mutilate any part of your body. This comes from the verse, Lo tisgodedu, that you shall not make any wounds within your body. Now, why would somebody want to do this? It says that, so the Torah explains that this was an old pagan practice, especially when standing over the dead body of your next of kin. That if you lost a loved one, in the olden days, part of idolatrous practice, they would start cutting themselves, mutilating a part of their body. Don't ask. So therefore, a Jew is not allowed to do this. This is totally pagan practice. Okay, the Rambam now adds something very, very interesting. The verse that tells us this mitzvah, that you are not allowed to cut yourself, the verse is lo tisgodedu. Now the Talmud says, there's a deeper message in this verse as well. The Talmud says lo tisgodedu, the word tisgodedu, which means cut, can also mean, or is also related to the word aguda, which means group. And lo tisgodedu means don't break up into groups. And the Talmud says a deeper message within this verse is that it's forbidden for a Jew to create conflict within a community and to split a community up into different factions. Don't make separate groups. But the Rambam says that is not the simple meaning of the verse. That is a deeper level reading of the verse, and every single word in the Torah has multiple layers of meaning. But the mitzvah is only coming from the plain reading of the verse, and therefore this verse is teaching us the mitzvah of not cutting yourself, which is an idolatrous practice. But again, the Rambam says, but there is a deeper message here as well about another mitzvah, which isn't counted in the 613 mitzvahs, but it's still, of course, a communication from Hashem that's hinted to in these words. Okay. Next mitzvah, the final mitzvah for today is that it's forbidden to tear out hair from the head as a form of mourning, which was a common practice. The Rambam says foolish people of his times, that what they would do is they would cry over their dead, and they would start tearing out their hair and making that part of their hair go bald. And that is forbidden for a Jew to do. And dear friends, that is it. That is the mitzvahs for today. And with that, we also conclude the about 50 plus mitzvahs that have to do with idolatry and different forms of worship associated with idolatry. I want to wish you all a wonderful evening, a wonderful day for whenever you listen to this. And thank you for joining the Daily Mitzvah. We will see you soon for our next installment. Take care, everyone.